Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today on the Church Brand Guide podcast. My name is Michael Prasad, and this is episode 13. I'm thrilled to be here today on the podcast. I was just reflecting about how we're in episode 13, and we started just out of obedience, feeling that there's a need for something like this, and now we are feeling that we're hitting our stride a little bit into what this thing is supposed to be, what it's really meant to be. We're getting new guests on just about every single week and providing some great information, some great content to help churches all around the world eventually just begin to understand the power of branding and how they can leverage it and marketing and be able to use it for the benefit of helping others come to know Jesus Christ. So today we're going to jump into a topic that I think will be extremely helpful, especially with our guest who is extremely knowledgeable when it comes to marketing. So we're going to dive into marketing one more time. And it's something that goes hand in hand. Marketing goes hand in hand with branding. In fact, it's like a right hand and a left hand. It's all part of the same body, and they work together to make great things happen, to help a church become attractive. Marketing is actually it's actually led by branding in a way. If marketing is the thing that goes out there and reaches people and communicates with people in various ways, then branding is the thing that guides it. It's almost like your marketing hand is guided by your brand hand, if that makes any sense at all in my analogy. But I actually came across a story about the Nike logo the other day that I thought made a lot of sense. The initial design for the Nike swoosh was not well received by the company. In fact, a junior designer out of college, designed the logo, and they presented it to Nike, and Nike didn't think much of it. But over time, they started to throw it on some shoes and use it in some marketing campaigns, and it began to get traction. It began to become the symbol of this active lifestyle. And then, of course, Nike adopts it. Now everybody knows the swoosh. And they called that designer back. And originally they paid them $35 to design that logo. And after many years of having tremendous success, Nike gave them this huge stock option basically in the company as a way to say thank you for creating the swoosh. But it just goes to show, though, that marketing and branding go together. They feed each other. Branding sets up marketing, and then marketing establishes branding, and then you do it again. It's a cycle. They just kind of feed each other. So we're going to get into our topic today, and we're going to talk again about marketing quite a bit. But Stephen Records is our guest, and he really does a good job of explaining how the marketing is really pointing back to the brand, to the message, the core values that the church has. So you'll see that in the podcast a little bit later on. But let me introduce Stephen just a little bit. He works at James River Church in Springfield, Missouri. James River is a large church, multi-campuses, 2 very large campuses, over 12,000 people attending on a weekly basis. They put on some of the largest events in the area for sure, if not in the state. And they do a large men's event called Stronger, where they pack out an arena, or they will be packing out an arena next year. I think they're moving it to just a larger venue. And then there's a women's conference called Design for Life that they do, and they pack out the arenas doing that. They have a college that they host there on the campus. Students from all over come to be a part of that college. And James River is just one of those thought leaders. They just do an amazing job in Springfield, Missouri, reaching that community, and they're laser focused on reaching that community, and it's a wonderful church to watch. And Stephen Records has come on in recent years, I'd say within the last couple of years, to head up their digital marketing department. James River didn't have a digital marketing department before Stephen came, but he did such an amazing job that they created this department, and Stephen's heading that up. And he's just extremely knowledgeable when it comes to marketing tools and tactics, the different ways you can market on social media, on websites, and in different ways. So as part of this podcast, he's just going to share a lot of the principles that he uses and the tactics that he uses to then reach people for James River, compelling them to be just drawn in by the vision of the church. So he in this part, this is actually a 2-part episode. There's so much information that we separated it out into 2 parts. In the first part, Stephen's going to share a lot of the marketing, reaching out aspect of what he does to reach outward beyond the walls of the church and to become attractive to people. He shares a lot of tactics and different things that are kind of theoretical, like how they're in theory they should work, but he's doing them and they are working, and he kind of shares his story about that. And then the second part, we'll get into a lot more of the internal side of things. But let's get to our interview with Stephen Records, and I want to welcome him to the Church Brand Guide podcast. Hey, thanks again for joining us on the podcast. I'm here today with Stephen Records, who's going to share with us a lot of just marketing information that he uses as the digital marketing manager at James River Church in Springfield, Missouri. Hey, Stephen, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. How you doing?
Oh, man, I'm doing great. I love doing this podcast. It's just one of the highlights of my week, so I'm thrilled to have you on today. In fact, why don't you start off by telling our audience just a little bit about you. What's your journey? How did you become the marketing director at this huge mega church, James River, 12,000 plus people, multi-campuses? How did you get there?
Yeah, hey, thanks again for having me. I'm just really honored to be on here with you to be able to talk about this sort of stuff. And really for me, my journey kind of began as a freelance photographer and designer. And I was doing all that stuff basically while I was still in high school, and then eventually went to the James River Leadership College at the time, and that's JRLC here, and that's our college that we have, and had went through that and gotten my associate's degree, and from there had really a heart and a passion for the local church, and had a desire to see the church grow and be a builder of the church, and had started during that journey a blog platform to be able to really speak to churches on how they can grow just strategically. And through that journey, I've been able to really see how churches can be really, really amazing churches that just they don't know how to grow in the 21st century because a lot of things have changed in technology, and so I wanted to be able to give voice to that. And from there, I actually went on to finish my degree at Hillsong College in Australia. And while I was there, within the first couple weeks, had just had a God moment where the Lord connected me with one of the executive staff members there at Hillsong, and I had started interning with him and working with him as a special projects manager, doing a lot of things involved with their conference marketing. He was actually overseeing the conference marketing and their sponsorships and their groups and all those different things there that happen across all the conferences that they have around the world. And so I had jumped in to help with a lot of that and had come up with some different proposals on how they can grow the conferences in different areas of the world, and what sort of things that we could be doing just to use what's in our hand in order to build the local church, in order to accomplish the goals that we'd have as a church and the things that we had purposed and that God had purposed in our hearts to do. And through that, I really was impassioned even more to help champion the cause of the local church and help grow churches and build them. And that was just an amazing opportunity to be a part of that there, and to really be able to see how they do that, and even be able to add to what they're doing and manage some of their websites and help rebrand some of them as well. And then from there, I had moved back, and within a couple months had started on staff at JRLC, the college that I initially was at, doing marketing for them. And through that, we had kind of almost just rebuilt from the ground up how that whole infrastructure and what sort of things we would use for emailing rebuild of the website that we had, and just redoing really everything. Um, and we had thought through new scholarships and everything. So through that journey, we really just saw the college take off in growth, and we ended up doubling our web traffic, and our social media for the college actually was outgrowing at the time the social media accounts for the main church. And at that point, we had just seen that it's such a huge need, that why aren't we doing that for the main church, and for the church at large. And so they had created the digital marketing department, and had moved me from JRLC to oversee that department, and I've been there for the past 2 years, and we've just seen really the Lord help us in so many different ways with that. Even just this past year, we doubled our web traffic, and had really just seen just phenomenal growth across the board, across all of our accounts. We've been able to launch a new website, and even make improvements, and launch a blog platform, a sermon archive, and really create some new things that we think are really helping build the church in ways that we never thought possible, or never seen done before.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that journey. It's been amazing, because I've known you for quite some time. I knew you before you got into all this stuff, back when you were a freelancer. And to see your journey to where you are now is really amazing. And it's really cool to see what James River is doing. They are a church to watch. If you haven't heard of James River Church in Springfield, Missouri, I want to highly encourage you to just start paying attention to their website, their social media. And if you do, you'll see Stephen's work in the mix. So we're going to break down what Stephen's doing with James River, what the strategy is, and the vision behind it, and where he's headed in the future. So why don't you share with us, from your perspective, sitting as the digital marketing guru over there at James River, tell us what the vision of James River is right now, and then what you're doing as the digital marketing manager over there to help that vision become a reality.
Yeah. Well, at James River, we really don't have like a set, like this is in the vision since the beginning. Really what it's been is whatever the Lord's spoken into our heart within any season of life, that we put a focus towards those things. And this year we really see God centering us around the phrase welcome home. And what that is to welcome people home into the kingdom of God, into the local church, so that they're no longer strangers or wanderers, and that they can enter in and feel like they're a part of a family, and be really supported and encouraged, and for them to feel strengthened, and to feel like they can walk in no matter who they are, where they've been, into the church, and that they're going to be received. And we also have seen within this year really a sense that God's calling us to be a fountain church, and meaning that we would be an example to other churches, and being able to champion the cause not just of James River, but of local churches everywhere, to be able to help churches around the world in their mission and their mandate that God has given them to be able to accomplish. And really what we've seen that stayed since the beginning is the core values of the church. And those core values are to reach the lost, expository preaching, prayer and worship, discipleship, children and youth, involving people in ministry, and encouraging people. And so that's really where we have put, as a digital marketing department, our focus has been. And this year, how can we welcome people in? How can we be an example and resource other churches? How can we focus on those core values? How can we reach the lost? How can we better make disciples online? How can we utilize the preaching that we have in the church and be able to give that to people out that may not be able to come to Springfield, Missouri, on a weekend and be a part of what's happening here necessarily. How can we encourage prayer and worship and in all the different areas where we see that those core values being lived out? How can we leverage everything that we're doing as a church through our digital marketing department to help make those things, that vision and those goals and those core values become real in everything that we do on a daily basis here?
So yeah, what does that look like for you guys? Like, is that in a very tangible way? That's what I'm trying to get at. Is it Facebook posts? Is it the website, optimizing it? Is it, I don't know. It could be so many things. I'm sure it's all of them. But can you walk us through what that begins to look like in a very tangible way?
It's everything, everything that we do should have and does have some sort of a goal behind it, a reason for why we do this. Why do we do what we do? And when I had first started this role leading the digital marketing department, one of the very first projects that we took on was to redo the James River Church website at jamesriver.org. And what we had done through that whole process is actually interview all the department leaders within the church and ask them, about their department. What's the goal? What's the reason that their department exists? What sort of things that do the people that they interact with on a daily basis need? What sort of things do they ask? What questions do they have? What's their workflow? And you think about all the goals that each department has, and then what the goals of the church are, and then that's actually been a process for us to listen to those people and be able to use that as a way to create the user experience that we have on the website currently. And through that, we've really thought about how can we strategize for them and with them to be able to create the best possible experience for them to be able to accomplish the goals and the things that they need to do on a daily basis, and be able to have the things that we need in order to best reach people, to answer the questions that they have, and to make it easier for the departments to operate. And what I've learned through that is sometimes the best thing that you can do is actually say no. Because when you're stepping into a role like this, it is in a lot of ways really based on best practices, and what may be suggested as a way of doing things or what they want on a certain page may not actually make sense for the best interest of the church or for that department. And so learning to say, like, I don't think you need 5 buttons in this section. I think instead if we narrowed it down to just 2 buttons and we led that to other pages that have more information, create a better user experience for those people. So we always want to champion the cause of the church, but then also think about the user and think about how are we accomplishing the goals that we have? How are we actually taking the problems that are out there, the things that we're trying to solve for, and what is the best solution for that? And a lot of times that requires collaboration, that requires conversation, and you got to be willing to do that. But really through Facebook, we try and use Facebook and Twitter and Instagram really to create awareness, as well as to drive people to the site for more information and to collect their information in different facets, or to get them to really accomplish anything that we would have as a goal here at the church. We would see social media have some sort of a stream through that. But one great instance is actually a new project that we recently launched in the past few months, which is our blog platform, the James River blog. And what we've done with this is actually kind of rethought the whole purpose of a blog on a site for a church. And what we've done is we've taken targeted advertising, and we have created a means where we can, post Facebook ads or specific ads through search engines like, Google AdWords or something like that target specific keywords that would lead them to a specific blog post about that subject. And within that blog post, we're trying to reach people. Like, the goal here is that we want to be able to reach the lost in our area. And what the advertising world now offers is a way to target those specific audiences. We can actually target people who are not Christian, who live within a 30-mile radius of us, and who are searching for around the topic of depression or stress, and provide topics on those specific needs. And then from there have an action step that either leads them to subscribe, where we collect their information, or where they can have an actual conversation with someone from our staff and team to help present the gospel to them and get them connected and invite them to church. And what we've been able to see is that even in this technical world, there are ways that we can utilize that to reach people and to have meaningful, engaging conversations with those that are not within the church or who would never step foot into a church. But as a result of those conversations, they are in fact coming to the church and becoming believers. And we've seen this in a lot of different areas where you can correlate the growth in traffic with the amount of people that are growing in attendance within the church. And so really what we've tried to focus on is within my department is how can we drive traffic to the site? How can we grow traffic to specific pages that are designed specifically for certain goals that we'd have? So that might be reaching the lost, that might be church attendance, that might be a conference, that might be our college ministry or our JRLC college, and that might be youth, that might be families who are seeking to start finding a church, since we're growing as a population. More people are coming in, and those people who are coming in may have came from a church, but we don't want those people to just not get involved. So how are we reaching people who are new to the area? I've never heard of James River, and who are still looking for a church in the area. And so we kind of think about all of those different questions and think about kind of how someone might go from not knowing anything about us all the way to being an active part of the church. And really that's kind of where we've seen our focus go. If you kind of go through our website, you can see how clearly each page is focused towards a specific audience for a specific purpose, and drives people to specific things that make sense. And I think that's what creates a great user experience, but it also is something that makes your site more effective. And so that's kind of where we've landed in terms of how we hit some of those goals and accomplish the vision of the church.
Okay,
and,
so
if you ask anyone from my team.
Yeah, let me jump in there. You were saying, so your website is kind of the hub. It's the main thing. You guys, that's what you started with when you got into position as the digital marketing manager. The first thing you did was attack the website and make sure you built a site that really caters to the needs of the different ministries within the church. And along with that, there's a bigger vision of the church as a whole that kind of came first. So you were kind of the guardian at the gate that kind of gave no's or yeses to different ideas that came across. That's really cool. I'm so glad you walked us through that process. And then you were saying that you went onto social media, and basically everything points back to the website, but you're still using social media. You're using Facebook and Twitter and different things to raise awareness of what's going on in the church. So the strategy that I hear you saying is that social media raises awareness and drives people back to the website. The website then captures information that you can then do something with that information. You can respond to it in different ways. And I think one of the other things that was really big that you talked about was your blog. So that's amazing that you're actually using the blog like marketing people would use for a software company. In a way, you're targeting keywords in your community for different pain points that people have in the community. and you're writing these articles and providing help for people based on what they're searching for. Not necessarily if they're searching for a church or searching for God. It's just searching for anything that they might need in their life. You're trying to meet them where they are.
Mm-hmm.
That's
we really target that. Yeah.
Man, that is wow. That's really really nice. Is there any other like social media outlets or things of note that James River uses?
I think that one of the things that gets lost is people tend to focus on a specific channel of, if you're using like analytic terms, they say channels of acquisition. So that could be your social media, that could be your search engines, that could be traffic that's just coming to you directly from people typing it in as a URL. That could be traffic that's coming from referred sources, like someone else's blog that's written about you, or from, a news site or something like that. And that could be coming from paid ads or campaigns. And there's all of those channels, and this could also be email. And what we've done is actually broken those down and said, where's this at? How can we grow this specific one? And I'd say the more that you look at your analytics and you break those down into those specific channels and you think of how you can grow each one, you're going to see crazy amount of success that way, instead of thinking of just one type of traffic like social media as the end-all answer for everything. Because, just like with someone who's a really good investor, he diversifies his assets, he diversifies his investments, because he realizes that there's more potential for growth if you are thinking about not just one way of growing it, but multiple facets of that. And so we've thought about how we can improve our SEO by creating better content on the site and providing more detailed information and creating a better infrastructure within the site that better tailors for what search engines are looking for. We've thought about how can we have content to drive people to our site through social media, and how we can best utilize social media in that. But then once we get traffic, especially if you're paying ads, you don't just want to rent space. When you rent a home, what happens is, as soon as that lease is up, you've gained nothing in the end. And instead, you can think of it more about how can we buy space, or how can we eventually work towards buying space. And that is where you keep that following, you keep those people that you've engaged with. And what we've thought of in terms of that is, how can we take some sort of a paid ad, but then or organic traffic that we're getting from search engines, and turn that into having contact information and being able to send some sort of a subscription to them or anything like that. So we actually are able to market to those people without having to spend additional funds, because ultimately, we're stewards of the funds that we're giving, and we want to be able to utilize that to the best of our ability. And there are a lot of ways that you can see tremendous growth. We've changed the game really for us when it came to email, where before we didn't have any sort of subscriptions on our site, and we weren't thinking about how we can utilize email in a really powerful way. And since we had started that, before the amount of traffic that our emails were sending us was less than a tenth of a percent, and now it contributes to over 5% of our web traffic overall. And you think about just how much traffic you can get through emails, and that's free marketing. You're not spending anything really to send an email, versus paying $1 or more for a click potentially, depending on if you're running through a Google ad campaign. I mean, obviously there are ways you can make that smaller, but I'd say that those are some really key factors that we've thought through, and how can we organically drive traffic to us by creating good content that people actually want to read or want to watch and want to subscribe to. And that's really where the game's changed for us.
Man, that's really really good. Thanks for sharing that. So you mentioned email as being a big, very organic way that you generate traffic. In the marketing world, emails are still a huge deal. To get somebody's email and be able to communicate with them, it's almost like you're communicating one-on-one, even if it's a mass, mailer that goes out. So it's very powerful, and it's really cool that as a church you guys are doing that. And like you're saying, it's more organic. You're not paying for that. So I love that point that you made. So how do you measure success? I mean, actually, why don't we, in general, just talk about measuring what you're doing? Like, how can you show that you're being successful in all these things?
Now, I'd say one of the key things that we do is we will look through Google Analytics and compare things year over year since the time of a specific event. So when we had launched the new website, we were comparing how that performed versus the previous year and looking at some specific stats. One would be obviously how many visitors we're getting or how many new users are using our sites. So those are a couple things that we look at. But then also, additionally, we'll look at how much referral traffic is going from one thing to another or how many views a specific page is getting. So one of the things that we had seen is that our sermons are actually like major contributors to our web traffic, and it also is something that we've gained a lot of subscribers to, and we have specific action steps that we track through the URLs that we put in there to be able to see how certain things have performed. And the hard thing, though, is really, and I think this is every church's challenge, is how do you translate your traffic that you're getting on your site to those people that have maybe visited you through one of these types of digital marketing campaigns in person. So how they went from visiting your site to attending the church and being a part of the church and becoming a believer, going through discipleship. And that's really where I think a lot of disconnect happens for churches, unfortunately. And there are some things out there that may help with that, and particularly business intelligence applications, but they tend to be pretty expensive. So one way to look at it, though, is if you're asking questions. So if you have like a survey that you have a place for visitors to go, and you're asking them how they heard about you, and you're reporting those things back to the departments that are focused on driving traffic to a site or driving visitors to the church in order to help grow the ministry, but even more importantly, be able to grow the kingdom and reach people. I think that's really important for there to be a communication between the people that are on the lines visiting and the people that are behind the scenes helping make the church something of awareness that people are gaining interest in and actually attending because of. But what we've been able to do here to just sort of help solve that is just really looking at the analytics, looking at the behaviors, looking at the subscriptions that we're getting for certain things. And also we have an online campus, and so we've seen how our referral traffic since we've grown our audience online has affected the online campus that we also have, which is a live stream. And we just continue to see that, and you kind of focus in on your one world and say like, okay, I know that we want to grow our traffic. We want to see per visit more people visiting more pages, or for them to spend more time on the site, or for there to be a smaller bounce rate. So we kind of look at all of those sort of behavioral stats, as well as having forms on the site to collect information. So we actually have a visitor form on our site that that'll instantly get sent as soon as that person submits, and it instantly sends an email notification to someone with our team with all their information. So even if that person filled it out on Saturday night and they said that they wanted to come and visit us on Sunday morning, they're automatically getting all the information they need to visit us. They have a map in there and all that, and then our team has all of their information to be able to adequately welcome them home and to show them around the church, and if they have kids, to take them to our kids facilities and be able to get their kids all set up and ready to go into their age appropriate classes, and then be able to show them to their seat in the auditorium, to really host them well. But a lot of that comes from us having the information ahead of time, so we can plan to be able to be of a bigger asset to them in welcoming them home. And then also for us, obviously, now that we've tracked that entry as a form entry, we know exactly where they've come from, and how they got to that point on our site, which is really what's helpful as a marketer to be able to see.
Wow, yeah. Again, really good information. Let me just kind of rehash a little bit of what you were saying. So you measure, that's a big thing that you focus on, is measuring what you're doing and how successful it's being, so that you are able to make adjustments. So basically you're gonna do more of what's working and less of what's not working. And some of the ways you measure is that you use analytics, so you can track page visits, how long people are staying on the site. So the website's a big indicator of your effectiveness on your digital marketing strategies. You also have a couple of things that I think of note. One is your surveys. So you survey people and you ask them, how did they hear about you, or what did they do to get to the church? So you just ask them in surveys. So that's cool. Mm-hmm. The other thing you mentioned is having forms. So you online, you have forms that people can fill out, and then sounds like there's a few different forms that they can fill out. I love the journey that you talked about, where somebody can fill out a form if they have kids, and then the church is able to welcome their kids and be ready for them when they show up on a Sunday morning. So I think the feedback, the having ways to measure your efforts is just extremely important, so that you're being good stewards of what you've been given. You also talked about you also talked about an online campus. Can you expand on that a little bit? What the thinking is behind that?
Yeah. Well, as a church, what we've seen is that now that we are kind of in the 21st century, and with the technology that's out there, there's a way for us to be able to very easily broadcast what's happening on a church. And for those people that may be, active duty and in the military, or people who are mobily impaired and can't actually make it out to a church, or people who have recently moved and are still trying to find a church, or let's say we get snowed out and it's an icy winter wonderland outside, then this becomes an opportunity or a way for people to be able to still be a part of church, and but without necessarily having to be at church. And we wouldn't say that is by any means a replacement of church. We still firmly believe in being actively and physically involved in the church, but we do see this as an available resource, an option for those who wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah, awesome. I think that's a wonderful way of thinking about it. I come into contact with churches who struggle with that idea of, hey, do we want people to come on campus, or just encourage them to stay home? But I think your thinking behind that, I think, is going to help some churches decide what the best way to go about it. Hey, I want to thank Stephen Records once again for giving us this amazing information about what James River is doing in the realm of digital marketing. It's almost like we lifted the hood and just took a look underneath what a very large church is doing. And they have a lot of resources. They have a whole digital marketing department, in addition to a creative department. So they have a lot of resources that they're pulling in, and being able to do to help them do what they're doing. So we can learn from that, though. It's not, no matter what size your church is and what you're doing, what you're able to do, it's something that you can learn from. You can at least begin to get the big ideas and implement them in whatever ways you're able to. Stephen spent a lot of time unpacking the website, and I think that's something important to point out, because a website is such an important and vital part of any marketing plan. It's the front door to the church. It's what people come to first, and you have to be extremely intentional to get that right. And Stephen just really unpacked how this mega church, is using the website in a powerful way to help people get drawn in from people that don't understand or know anything about the church into becoming members of the church, active members who are participating and helping and serving. He also talked a lot about content, creating great content that's attractive to the people in the community. So he unpacked that quite a bit with a blog and emails and social media, and how they all begin to tie together to feed each other. So it's, again, just amazing information from Stephen there. And I'm so grateful that he joined us on the podcast. There's a couple things I want to let you know. One of the things that I do every single time we do a podcast is just share a resource, a book that you can look into to help you as a church leader, as a church creative, to begin to think differently and get out of the just a circle of being in church or in a church world, and look outside of that. And the book today is called Tipping Point, and it's a book by Malcolm Gladwell. And the big idea of this book is that it takes a look at people and how they react and respond to things over a period of time to create big movements. So basically, the book unpacks big movements that have happened, and it takes a look at how it started off as a very small thing, but then it begins to grow and build on top of each other until it becomes this bigger movement, which then everybody is able to pay attention to because it's so big. So it takes a look at some negative circumstances of, like, maybe some riots that have happened in the city of Baltimore, and how did it get to the point where it got to, where it finally overflowed and became this big issue in a very negative way. But then also it takes a look at, like, even fashion trends, like how did certain fashion trends become a trend? It starts off in this very tiny pocket, and then some people that are influencers kind of start to pick up on it, and then they influence their groups who influence, more people. And it just begins to unpack this idea spreading, and how ideas spread and become this big thing, even though it starts off in a very small way. So as church leaders, I think it's an exciting idea to look into, because we share ideas as churches. We share big ideas that come from God and from the Bible. And if we understand how that begins to happen and take root, then we could be more strategic and maybe think about things in different ways, in more creative ways, so that big ideas, God ideas, begin to take root in our communities. So the book, again, is called Tipping Point. It's by Malcolm Gladwell, and you can get it. There's a link on it on our blog that will take you to it, so you can buy the book. I enjoy listening to books quite a bit, so if you want to take a look at audible.com. That's what I use to get the majority of the books that I read. I listen to them, and it's a great way for me to process and get a lot of information. So just a couple recommendations there on Audible and then on the book itself. One other thing to let you know about is on our blog. It's at churchbrandguide.com. We have a contact page, and feel free to use that if there's any questions that you have. I would really love to hear from you and then respond to you with any questions or even comments. Any encouragement is great. We're just, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, we're just putting ourselves out there and hoping for the best. Any critiques are great too. We want to become better. That's one of the values that we have. And just any questions that you have that we can help you with, feel free to reach out to us. And there's also different forms throughout the website where you can reach out to us, and we'd love to be in touch with you. One of the questions I would have, if you just wanted something to kind of respond to us with on the contact page, is, what is your biggest struggle right now when it comes to branding your church? maybe let me know what that is, and I'll reply to you and let you know if there's anything that I've come across that might be able to help you out with that. So make sure you contact us anytime. Feel free to do that. We'd love to hear from you. We also have a new photo resource. It's kind of a neat thing that we put together. We thought we've heard many questions whenever we do speaking engagements. So someone always asks the question, hey, where can we get some great photography that's free? What's some good websites? Free's great. Usually it's free is kind of thrown in there as part of the question. And so we've provided a resource of 11 great websites that we love using that provide great photos, and they're all free websites, and you can use the photos for anything that you want to do with them. So make sure you check out the blog and churchbrandguide.com to get that new resource that's on there. You'll see it right on the homepage, and it's free. You can just download that resource. It gives you a list of those 11 sites. So again, thanks for joining us. We will pick up on our next podcast with Stephen, and that'll be part 2 of his interview with us. But thanks again for joining us on the Church Brand Guide podcast, and I'll see you next time.